Welcome to Legally Speaking. Legally Speaking is part of the Women for Progress Media Network, which airs on Mondays at 6 p.m., 6 to 7. You can catch our podcast here on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, and live at www.womenforprogressradio.com. And I am Judge Yemi Kings. I'm your host for Legally Speaking, where we talk about various legal matters. And today we have a special guest, Judge Damon Stevenson, our Hinds County Circuit Court Judge, our newest Hinds County Circuit Court Judge. And we're going to talk about the jurisdiction of the different courts. And we're going to talk also as well about Judge Stevenson and his courtroom. Judge Stevenson, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Judge King.
Well, Judge, I'm sure you have probably experienced folks asking you, what kind of cases do you handle? And probably some confusion about the kind of cases you handle. Because folks come to me all the time and ask me about, hey, I got a divorce case, I got a custody case, and have to explain, look, that's not in my court's jurisdiction. So let's kind of get into it and talk about the jurisdiction of the different courts. I know you've been a judge in municipal court as well as now in circuit court. So let's start by talking about municipal court, the jurisdiction, and common types of cases that are seen in municipal courts.
So I served as a municipal court for a number of years in the city of Byram. I was also a municipal judge pro temp for the city of Clinton, which meant when the regular judge was not there, I would sit in for him. And so at the municipal court level, a lot of what you see is misdemeanors. You see your simple assaults, your domestic violence, your DUIs, a lot of what I call your weekend crimes, people who get in trouble over the weekend. A lot of it ends up in municipal court, where you're often arrested by a local police officer and some affidavit or charging document is filed against you, and you're brought before the court. And so what I would do is set a bond and also schedule a trial date. A lot of times in your cases like your domestic violence, you may issue what's called a protection order, telling a person that they have to stay away from a person. And it is always interesting when you tell a person who's paying a house note, paying rent, that you can't go to the house or the place that you're paying rent for, and they don't understand it. And sometimes it seems unfair, and sometimes it actually is unfair because a person can be arrested just based on the allegation of one person. And a lot of times people ask me, as an attorney, I'm sure you've been asking me, can I be arrested for this? Well, I told them the reality of the matter is you can probably be arrested for any reason. The question is, will it stand up in law? Because a lot of times, especially at the municipal court level, upon an initial charge, it's just based off the statement or the affidavit of one person. And so that could cause a person to be arrested. And so the judge has to kind of cipher through this and determine, is there, based on the very limited information that's available, does this appear to be a legitimate case? And if so, what type of bond should be set in place? And what type of conditions should be put in place, such as such as a protection order or no contact order. And so that's a lot of what I did at the municipal court level.
And for a period of time, I was a municipal court prosecutor in Terry, and it seemed like in municipal courts you get a lot of no insurance, no driver's license, a lot of stuff like that, where I just found myself trying to work out ways to help people. Like you facing fines, and I give you this big fine, then you probably won't be able to get insurance. But at the end of the day, I just tell folks, look, just spend this money on the front end because you're going to spend it anyway. Once you get pulled over and get that ticket and get that fine, you're going to spend that money anyway.
So, you are so correct. You see a lot of, because also with municipal court, there's a lot of traffic. And you see a lot of no insurance. And I tell people don't realize your license can be suspended in the state of Mississippi for not having insurance. But, if you hit somebody, if they take a trip to the hospital, you can damage their car. You can easily be looking at a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 bill before you realize it. And so the question is it, although it may be difficult, is it better to pay a monthly fee to the insurance company to provide coverage versus taking the risk, hitting somebody, because obviously, if you hit somebody, they're gonna want to be made whole. They're gonna, they're gonna want those damages, and so people don't think about that. And I love the city of Jackson. Yeah, but all of us have been sitting at a red light, and somebody come behind us, go around us, and keep going like there is not a red light. And that is something that I don't think people realize how dangerous that is. I was talking to somebody and they were teaching their kid to drive because I have a daughter that's she just turned 14, and so I'm starting to kind of teach her to drive. And you have to teach kids. Look, even though when the light turned green, you sit there for a couple seconds. Don't just take off because
Yes.
the light turned green. Because some people are not going to stop, and people don't realize you're putting people's lives on in danger. And a lot of times you ain't going nowhere but around the block.
Yep. I mean, you're exactly right. I see that light changes. Let me just wait a couple seconds. Sometimes folks may be behind me blowing, but I'm not gonna worry about it. And to get off topic a little bit, I was thinking the other day. I don't even blow at people anymore. I don't get to the point now where I'm just too scared to blow at somebody. I just wave at them. Hey, go ahead, no problem.
Unfortunately, I was talking to an officer. He shared something with me. He said, I got a couple years until I retire. He says, I'm not gonna pull over some crazy person, and I don't know what their intent is, and I'm just trying to slow them down, and I'm not go home because I don't know what's in their mind. Like
Yeah.
we have a very volatile society now, and you hear, and I think that's why I'm so glad that people like you and I are on the bench because we understand the community, and I know you've seen what we see is a lot of young people we can talk to and we can try to reach them because I don't think that these young people realize how volatile life is, and you know you seen because I know you're a prosecutor and you're from the community. You blow at somebody in today's society, somebody can end up dead and over with a murder charge over something as simple as somebody blowing at somebody because
Yes.
there's just such a value on human life. And so you're exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, I've prosecuted cases where exactly that happened, where somebody blew the horn or a minor fender bender led to somebody losing their life. So yeah. Um, Also in municipal court, um, did you also get a chance to set bonds on felonies and misdemeanor cases?
So for municipal, you handle throughout the entire case, start to finish. On felony cases, you handle the initial appearance, which is where you inform a person of their rights and you tell them, you determine whether or not they have an attorney representing them and to see if they need to be appointed an attorney. And then you also handle a bond. And there is nothing probably as uh, thoughts, much you have to put much thought in as setting a bond because there are so many factors. So they go into setting a bond. It used to be called. There was a case, the Lawson case. They used to call it the Lawson factor. Supreme Court kind of they came up with some criminal rules a couple of years ago, and there are a lot of factors. And if we could just talk about bond for a moment because this is the reality of the matter. I'm telling you, we're gonna have a real come to Jesus understanding with what are we going to do about bonds. Because the reality of the matter is, we're under a county that has limited resources, and you can only so many people can be in jail. Plus, you actually you have a constitutional right to a reasonable bond. Okay, so as a judge, you're balancing all those factors, but you're also balancing public safety. No judge wants to release somebody on a bond this weekend and they go out and kill somebody next weekend. You don't want that. No judge wants that. And so you're trying to balance, is this a type of person that I should release back into the community until their case is resolved? And we've seen it, and we're seeing it more and more. And it's really sad because you see people released, and then they get out and they murder somebody and they kill somebody. And people are quick to blame the judge. When a person commits a murder, it is that person's fault, right? That person is wrong. Now, but judges do have to ask a serious question. What can I do on the front end to protect the public society while still protecting a person's constitutional and statutory rights? And I'm of the opinion that society is better off with some people in the jail cell. I hate to have to say it, but that's just the reality of the matter. And I'll be honest, I saw that very early on in practice. I remember when I had first started practicing, I was retained to this family retained me to represent a young man in their family, and this was down in Brookhaven, Mississippi. I went down there to Brookhaven and I got him a bond on the Friday. He was released that weekend. He was murdered that Tuesday. And I thought to myself, had he not been released on bond, he would likely still be alive. And I've heard some mothers say, hey, the only time I have peace is when my child is in jail. Because when they're out of jail and the phone rings in the middle of the night, I'm wondering, is somebody calling to tell me that they have been involved in something or have they been killed? And that's really sad. And judges, we're not God. We don't have crystal balls. So I don't know if I release you, if you're going to go to work, if you're going to stay out of trouble, if you're going to go out here and shoot up the city, right? And so we have to make really tough decisions. And sometimes we don't have a whole lot of information. And so there's probably no issue that it is controversial as the issue of bond.
Yeah, I remember one judge, I forgot what county I was in, but I was trying to get a bond on this felony case. And he said, well, I'm scared your client may do something when he gets out. And I don't want to be on the news. And the only way I want to be on the news is if I win the lottery. So I'm not going to let your client have me on the news. No bond. So, it's just a lot of stuff that goes into it. But you definitely want to just be thoughtful about it. Like you said, there's so many factors that we got to consider. And it's nothing we take lightly. Anytime somebody comes before us and we got to make that decision, we know that's somebody's life. They got a family. They got people that love them. Then on the other side, you got the community to be concerned with, and sometimes you have victims to be concerned with. So there's a lot that goes into it. Let's shift gears and talk about justice court, which is similar to municipal court. Let's talk a little bit about justice courts.
So justice court is very similar to municipal court. The only difference is a lot of times you're arrested by Jackson police officer, Byron Clinton. It would, especially for a misdemeanor, it would work its way through the municipal court system. If you're arrested by a sheriff's deputy or a highway patrolman, most of the time that's going to be handled in justice court. And also, justice court does hear some civil matters under $3,500. And so a lot of times also, if you go in justice court, if you go to, a payday lending place or some of these cash advances and you don't pay, they're often going to sue you in justice court because of the amount. If you fall behind on your rent and your landlord attempts to evict you, most of that is going to be handled in justice court. And so there are a lot of issues that handle in justice court civil and then as well as criminal. If you're arrested for a DUI or domestic violence by a highway patrolman or a sheriff's deputy, those also will work their way through justice court.
Yep, absolutely right. So when I was a county prosecutor for Hinds County, we handled the justice court prosecutions, and we usually saw a lot of tickets. Could be no insurance, no seatbelt, no license, a lot of DUIs, misdemeanor assaults. We did the peace bonds, misdemeanor possession charges, and like you said, on the civil side, the small claims matters up to $3,500. And justice court on the civil side, I have concurrent jurisdiction in county court because I handle anything from 0 up to 200,000. So anything from 0 to 3,500, it can be filed in either justice court or county court. But most of the time, those matters are filed in justice court. A lot of folks refer to it as just small claims court. Then also, civil and criminal matters in justice court are appealed to county court. So I hear the civil appeals because I primarily handle the civil docket for the county court. So if somebody gets a judgment they don't agree with in justice court, they appeal to county court, and I hear those matters. And on the criminal side, Judge McDaniels hears those appeals from justice court. Justice court is a very high volume court. I mean, I can't tell you how many cases they handle, but it was nothing for me to come in and have a docket with 30 or 40 people on there. any given day. I mean, on the morning docket, even had an afternoon docket, it could be the same thing.
So when I was in law school, I interned one of the prosecutors called it fast food justice. Because a lot of times, that's kind of funny, but that's kind of what it is. We call it fast food justice. Like
Yeah,
people show up at the courthouse, and we're going. A lot of times, there's just because of the very nature of it, there's not a whole lot of people are not able to put a whole lot of thought into it. For most of the prosecutors, you prosecute, that's part time. The judges are part time. And so you really a lot of times you're showing up. Most of the individuals are not represented by attorneys, and so you're literally just kind of up and working through problems and situations and trying to help find something that works for everybody, and hopefully give as many people as you can a sense of justice.
Another thing that I would see when I was prosecuting in justice court and also in municipal court, it seemed like a lot of folks came in and didn't take it seriously. I mean, with the attire and demeanor and all of that, it's like they didn't think they were really in court.
Can we talk about that for just a second? Because I did a
Yeah.
post years ago, even before I became okay. And this is what, and there was a time when people went to do official business, they get dressed a certain way, right? And this is the reality of the matter. Appearances can be deceiving, but oftentimes the first appearance, that's all you know about a person, right? And so you got a judge that does not know you is going to have to decide your case. The more credibility you give them, because a lot of times you have people standing there with total opposite sides of the story, and the judge doesn't know either one of them, so they don't know whose story to believe. So the more credible you are, the easier it is for the judge to adopt your set of facts and just rule in your favor. And so credibility is determined by different things. And if a judge looks at you and you look credible, right, that helps a judge say, you know what, it seems like the type of person is honest and telling the truth, so I probably should rule in their favor. And a lot of times that goes with dress. And we have to do a better job of helping people. When you go into certain environments, right, you need to dress a certain way. I was getting some young people to help me do something. And I said, hey, look, if y'all help me, I'll give y'all a couple dollars, right? And then they say, yeah, we're going to help you. And then they come, we're going to do some yard work. And they show up with flip-flops on. And I'm like, y'all, we can't do yard work. We can't do yard work with flip-flops on. Yeah,
Yeah.
Y'all can get hurt. And it's like, and I'm thinking, people say, well, I can't get a job. Well, if you're showing up to certain jobs and you got flip-flops on, you're probably not going to get the job, right?
Don't take it seriously.
You go to Nissan for a job interview, they're not going to, there's equipment, there's safety issues. And so we have to do a better job. When you come to court, like, you need to dress a certain. And I understand that everybody doesn't have the same resources, everybody doesn't have the same finances, but you do the best you can do. And if there's a person that is coming to court and they don't have the best resources, this one we have to become a community. This one we have to become a village, and we have to be there for people. There are churches I know that have like clothing that's available. Brethren Temple on Robinson Road, they have a storehouse where they'll give people clothes for little or nothing. And if you don't have any money, you walk in there, you tell me, I got an event, I'm going to court, I need something decent to wear. They will give you clothes for free, right? And so I can't stress that enough. When you come to court, for whatever court you are, make it look like you are going to court. If you a dad and you're going to Chancellor Court and you want visitation, and you want to, you want the judge to take you serious, don't wear a white beater. Sometimes Judge King, when we were in private practice, we would look at our clients and we were thinking, you making my job harder than it has to be.
Yeah. Look, I used to tell my clients initially, I say, look, dress like you dress when you go into church. But then I come to find out that that's different now. So I said, son, I had to be specific. Look, wear some slacks, wear a button-up shirt, wear a tie. If you got a blazer, wear a blazer. If you got a suit, wear a suit. Got to be very specific.
If you're going to be sentenced by a judge, dress like you appreciate the seriousness of it. Don't dress like there's nothing. Because to me, as a judge, The goal is people will appreciate the seriousness of court, then you don't have to help them. When people don't appreciate, the only way the law works is there's respect for law. And so if people don't appreciate the seriousness of court, then we as judges have to help them appreciate it, right? And those of us that had good mothers that will say, look, I'm gonna tell you one time, but then next time I'm gonna make a believer out of you, right? And so if you do it yourself, nobody has to help you.
Look, I'm gonna tell you one of my horror stories. This was a felony DUI case I had, and we end up doing an open plea. We're trying to get house arrest. So I told him, hey, show up for court appropriate. It's a chance you could go to jail, for a year, or we could get house arrest. I don't know what the judge is gonna do. We're gonna put on a good case. So he came in. He wasn't dressed appropriately. So then he went outside, and they called this case. They had to go find him, and he was out. I think he was outside drinking. And I said, what are you doing? I saw him drinking something. He said, well, I'm probably about to go to jail, so I might as well just go out with a bang. I said, okay, well, you going to jail then. You going to jail. I mean, that was the worst situation I had. My client, just demeanor was just all messed up. I've had clients come in. I always tell them, say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes your honor, no your honor. It's no yeah, none of that mess. And sometimes they would do that, and a lot of times they would infuriate the judge when they did that. So it's just important folks to understand just your demeanor counts, and how you present yourself. All that counts, and that's, like I said, that's across any court.
Right, and can I say something? Who you brings to court with you too matters, right? People bring, their mother who will address the court in a very appropriate manner, ask for mercy, and then I see other people bring, their friends and stuff, say, well, he didn't do nothing wrong. We don't think what he did was that bad, or I know somebody that killed somebody and they didn't get that much time. That doesn't persuade the judge.
Yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. And just again, on how important it is, the attire is. When I was at the public defender's office, we had a closet full of clothes. I mean, we had shirts, ties, jackets, just stuff that we just, we might have had an old shirt, we just put it in the closet because it was just so important that our clients came to court presentable. And if they didn't have it, we tried to, provide what we could. It's just that important. So let's talk about chancery court. And that's something that neither one of us are chancellors. We don't handle these matters, and I get asked about it all the time. But chancery court handles things like wills and probates and estates, divorces, custody, all those type of family matters. Let's talk a little bit about chancery court.
And although we're not chancery judges, I think both of us have done chancery work, because I think we even had cases on the opposite sides of each other when we were in private practice. And so chancery court, it's most commonly, I call it family court. Most of your family court issues are going to go through chancery courts. All of that, child support. And child support is extremely important. And even though, we don't do chancery cases, but we dealt with it and we understand the ramifications of it. If there is a person taking care of a child and you have a child, the person that is not taking care of the child should do their part to financially support this child. And chancery court addresses it. But I'm going to be honest. As a parent, no judge should have to tell you to take care of your child, right? You should. If you create a child, you should, because too many of us, and I think our paths are kind of similar. I had, my mother at the time had to serve as a single mother, and she did what she had to do to make sure we were taken care of her. But if you're not if that child is not with you, do your part to take care. And a lot of people say, well, I don't know how she's gonna use the money. Yes, you do. Your child has to eat. They need a roof over their head. They need the same thing. And so chancery court helps address that. They deal with child support. They also deal with visitation. I believe a lot of what we see in the circuit and county court is spillover from unresolved chancery court issues. And what do you mean when you say that? I think when both parents are involved in their child's life, it doesn't guarantee that their child is going to be perfect, right? But what it does do, it increases the chances that child has everything that they need become a productive member of society. And so, visitation, I think, is very important. I think it is really extremely important for both parents, even if their child is not in the house with you, for both parents to be involved in their child's life. Especially, these little kids, they need to see productive members. They need, I'm gonna say it, they need to see productive men, right? They need to see productive men because a lot of times they see the mother working, they see the mother taking care of them, and so they're exposed to strong women who are doing their part to make this community a better place. I think what we have to do a better job is making sure that every child is exposed to good, strong men who they'll see. I would tell, sometimes people will be, this goes back to this record, I would tell young men that in front of me on domestic violence and simple assault, if you would treat every woman like you want somebody to treat your daughter or your mother, you will never stand in front of a judge accused of simple assault or domestic violence because, I have one sister and a mother, and now I'm married, I have a wife, and I have two little girls, and they're my life, right? And so when you understand, look, uh, how you want to be a good example. I try really hard to I always show my wife the utmost respect because I tell my daughters I don't want y'all to marry some knucklehead and think that that's love, right? I want y'all to know how a man is supposed to talk to a woman, and so Chancery Court. If they get it right, they help with all, families work through all of those issues. They get with, divorce, uh, people don't realize it. In the state of Mississippi, it is very easy to get married. I've seen your Facebook page and stuff, so I know you one of the judges. I think you do quite a bit of marriage, and people will stop by. You will marry them. Especially, I think the people went to Lanier. They're from 833. They think you're the only judge that marry people, so they come find you and get you married them. So it's easy for us to marry people. But over in Chancery Court, it's not always that easy to get a divorce if they don't agree. And so Chancery deals with all of those issues. They also deal with, sometimes land disputes, wills. They deal with wills in the states. Can I say this? Everybody needs a will. People don't realize it, but everybody needs a will because
Can
when
you say it
somebody,
again?
if and look, we get out. You out of practice. I'm wrapping up my practice, so we got no financial incentive for telling you this. We
Right.
get out of this, but you need a will. There is nothing. Some of my most difficult cases that I'm trying to wrap up now, where there was not a will in place. If everybody needs a will, especially if you what I have I call a mixed family, right? You need a will that's gonna make it. If you own anything, who do you want to get the house? It's too many fights over mama and grandmama house. Families fall out. Can't even have peaceful funerals because of what happens to the house. Have a will. That just makes life so much easier. If you're married and you have children that are not with your spouse, please have a will. Please have a will. That'll make life. And people. And let me throw in this. You see a lot of people who've been together for a long time but are not necessarily married. Come to the courthouse and one of us will marry you because when somebody passes, and I've seen fights over who plans the funeral, who has this, and I've had to file emergency petitions over stuff like what the funeral gonna be at or who has control over the funeral. All of that stuff becomes a headache and planning is not in place and families are not on the same page when somebody passes. And so all of that would go through cancer court. But a lot of that can be avoided if we were planning better on the front end.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen some wild things fighting over property. I remember had a case where one brother killed his brother because they were fighting over the dad's rental house. I mean, in the house, no house is worth that, but the house it was pretty much it was falling down, and they were arguing over who was gonna have access to the house. And one of them said, "What Daddy told me I could have it." And that's just not how it goes. There was no will, and one person just felt like it's mine, and he killed his brother because they disagreed over that. And I think a will definitely could have saved that. I've just seen too many siblings fall out over who's gonna get what, and sometimes it can be things that um, it can be vicious. I mean, I've seen folks fighting over all kind of stuff, and it seemed like they didn't really necessarily want the stuff. It's just about winning. You know, I just don't want you to have it, and then don't get into this issue of outside children. You know, and I had to tell him like, look, that's your daddy's child, just like you're his child. And a will would just stop so many problems. Yeah. Um, can you talk a little bit about? You want to talk about transfer on death deeds?
Yes, now those are actually a good thing because what that does is that allows people to avoid probate, and people don't realize it. Uh, Even if you have a will, it still has to be probated to be valid. Anytime you probate something, it's subject to claims by creditors. For instance, if there are medical bills that are unresolved, credit card bills that are unresolved, those people can file a claim on an estate, and if there's any property or assets, they could use it to try to satisfy the claim. And while I'm here, let me say this. I think one of the worst things that I've seen in our community that people are being preyed on is these reverse mortgages. I've had cases where people thought mom or grandma's house was paid for. She died, and they get a letter from a reverse mortgage company saying she borrowed 30,000. Y'all owe us 50,000, and if y'all don't come up with that 50,000 in the next couple of days, we're gonna sell the house. Well, most of people in our community, they don't have $50,000 to come up with, and I've seen cases. They say, well, we don't even know what grandmama did with the money, or they'll say grandmama didn't borrow that money. She let somebody convince her to borrow the money, and they got the money, and so I will say these families need to have open conversations about, especially when you have parents and grandparents that are aging, have open and honest conversations about their financials, and don't allow other people to take advantage of them. Don't allow people to prey on them and go out and grandmama got good credit, so people will get a credit card in grandmama's name. Grandmama ain't going to Macy's. Grandmama ain't order off Amazon. But
Right.
when she dies, this credit card bill pops up. And so, going back to your question, a transfer on death deed says, hey, when a person dies, automatically transfer this property to them. So it's not subject to a lot of the claims of the creditors. And so I think that's very helpful. And a lot of times people ask, do I need an attorney? Well, if you're going to an attorney, they're going to advise you of all of those, your different options. And a lot of times, those are going to save you money and heartache. I remember when I was at law school, Professor Jeffrey Jackson, he said, every attorney, you got two types of clients. You got those clients that come in on the front end and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What should I do? He said, you're not going to make a whole lot of money off them.
Mm-hmm.
He said, because they're going to get good advice on the front end. He says, you're going to tell them what they need to do on the front end. He said, you ain't going to pay off your house on them. You're not going to make a whole lot of money. He says, your other client that most of us have that's going to take care of us, he said, they're going to come in there and say, hey, look, this is a mess. I need you to clean it up after the fact. He said, that's how you're going to be able to have a decent life, right? And so people say, do I need an attorney? If you go on the front end, you're going to pay a whole lot less, and it's going to save you a whole lot of heartache.
Yeah. And that transfer on death deed, avoiding probate, in layman terms, you avoiding having to pay a lawyer a lot of money to take your stuff through the courts. One thing I've noticed over the years, I think rich people and wealthy people have found a way to not spend a lot of money on things, and they find ways to avoid probate whenever they can. So I'm trying to be like them, try
And,
to save some money.
and I want to tell you something else that a lot of us miss that I think. Grandmother has a house that's paid for. She has to go to a nursing home. Medicare, Medicaid pays for it. And so after they find out that grandmother is deceased, they say, hey, we want thousands of dollars back, and we're gonna put a lien on the house until we get it. Some
Yeah.
planning could have avoided that, right? If they had planned, and you can't wait because they have a look back period. You can't wait till grandmama in the nursing home, and you can't wait till grandmama died to deal with that. But if, like you're saying, if you deal with all of that on the front end, you can avoid. You can put your house in a trust or add somebody's name to it or something, so that Medicaid doesn't end up putting a lien on it, and the family has to come up with that money. And so I think that you're right. Some communities take advantage of that. We have to do a better job. There's a whole lot of property that's lost in our communities because we don't handle business. You know, grandmama dies and the house is paid for, but nobody pays the taxes. And
Yep.
so after grandmama dies, and it ends up back at the state or some out of state company. You know, people talk about a lot of real estate properties in Hines County, but if you pull the deed, a lot of those properties are owned by people who don't live in Hines County, right?
Yep.
And so, and they bought it a lot of times here at the Texas at this courthouse for little or nothing. And so there's a
Yep.
whole lot of property that's being lost, and we have to do a better job of it.
Look, one of my best friends, his family, they lost the grandmother's the family home over a tax dispute. So their grandmother passed, and she didn't have a will, and the children were arguing about who was going to have the house and who was going to stay there or who was going to rent it out, who's going to collect the rent. So they never could reach an agreement. So they all decided, well, I'm not going to pay the taxes. And they decided they'd rather see the house go than to see anybody have the house. They just lost the house to taxes because there was no will and they couldn't reach an agreement.
And that's why our communities have to start over, because they don't just lose the house. That was generational wealth that could have been
Yes.
passed on.
And the grandma paid that. The house was paid off. I mean, she worked, she bought that house and paid it off. She renovated the house. I mean, it was a nice house. They let it go.
And you think that a grandchild who started their life, how much better would they have been if they could have stayed, instead of having to pay an apartment rent? They could have been staying in grandmama's house, maintaining an asset in the family, saving that money as opposed to paying a rent, right? And that's how you build wealth. And that's why our community has to do a better job with the. We have to start over every generation. You can't get ahead starting over every generation. And we're allowing assets to lose it. And somebody else buys it, and it becomes an asset for their family.
That's exactly what happened. Okay, let's talk about county court. All right, so I'm a county court judge, and in Hinds County, our county court, we have 3 county court judges, and we split it up in civil, which I handle the civil docket. Those are going to be your lawsuits from $0 up to $200,000. Those can include evictions, different contract disputes, car accidents, personal injury cases. Then also, county court has a criminal division, which that's Judge Johnny McDaniels. He handles the criminal docket. That includes, like we discussed earlier, the appeals from criminal appeals from justice court. Also, he handles the felony initial appearances, and then the felony preliminary hearings, and also setting bonds in felony cases. And then we also have a youth court division. Our youth court judge is Judge Carlin Hicks, and we have the abuse and neglect cases, where children may have been put in harmful situations, and we had to find proper placement for the kids or whatever kind of services we could provide. Then also the delinquency docket, where children were charged with different offenses. Important to note that there are certain cases that do not go to youth court. So if a gun is involved, like a murder or armed robbery or armed carjacking, those cases never go to youth court. They go directly to the adult court. You want to add anything on county court?
Yeah, so county court is extremely important. We certainly appreciate that. You just mentioned something for youth court. If it involves a gun or certain offenses, that even though a child is under a certain age, it does not go through county court. It does not go through youth court. One of the sad things I'm seeing is the number of 14, 15, 16-year-olds here in Hinds County charged with murder or some violent offense. We're going to have a real conversation as a county, because something is not working. And it's just too many young people that are ending up in the adult criminal justice system. And in the process, they're wreaking havoc on the community. And, back to county court. And one of the things that I appreciate is how you all have essentially, in my mind, what I call divisions. And I'm going to tell you, the community doesn't realize it, but what they do is, if, as an attorney, if I had a civil case and it was in county court, I knew then that I needed to contact Judge King's court administrator about a court date. And it just makes things flow so smooth. I know if in county court I need a pre-mail, I need to contact Judge McDaniel's staff. I think having divisions and having this specialty uh, makes things flow. And then not only that, people don't realize it. Once you know the judge, so as an attorney, I can tell my client, hey, this is Judge King's procedure. This is how he's going to address it. And so I know that on the front end. If I know Judge King, I know his temperament, I know his demeanor, I know what he expects. And I can tell my client, we don't have to wait till a court date. I can tell the other attorney, hey, look, I know Judge King, you know Judge King. We know this is how he moves those cases. That puts us in a better position to advise our client and work something out, right? And so I just think having dedicated judges to deal with certain divisions, I don't think our county, I don't think people in the community appreciate that and knows how helpful it is and how that helps cases move more smoothly. And so as a circuit court judge now, and when I was in practice, I certainly appreciate you all for that.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk a little more about county court. So the appeals from the civil appeals from justice court to county court, those are called appeals, de novo appeals, which means it's like a new trial. It's like whatever happened in justice court, we don't consider that. You have a new trial. We start over. We hear the case again, and we just kind of see what happens. Um, then on the criminal side as well, the judge will hear the case new, and we just start from there. The initial appearances on the felony cases, we try to get those done within 48 hours. And on the preliminary hearing, we try to get those set within 14 days of that request. You know, unless good cause for some reason we can't get it set in that 14 days, it might take a little longer. That's just kind of generally what we do in county court. And of course, county court kind of the civil side at least kind of overlaps with the circuit court, because anything from 0 to 200,000 that can be filed. It can be filed in county court or it can be filed in circuit.
Please file it in county court. That's what I'm telling people.
Please, no. We look. We got enough. Judge, listen. We have closed out and resolved over 3,500 cases this year, and I probably still got another 3,000 or 4,000 on my docket. So look, we good.
So people, other counties and the general public has no idea of the volume of cases here, every level. The judges here in Hinds County here, right? Because this is the largest county. You got your state agencies. So we're just inundated with cases, and the system only works if there is a timely resolution of cases. People are entitled to justice, and it should not take 5 and 6 years. One of the things that we have been doing is going through cases to see what's pending on the docket, what needs to go ahead and be resolved. And a judge is just one person, right? You can only do so much, and especially like when you're in trial, when you can really only try one matter at a time, and people don't realize it. But people are constantly filing new cases, and they're coming in. Now the difference is, you said you mentioned appeals. So appeals come to county court de novo. That means you're basically doing a whole new trial. Well, you can appeal from county court to circuit court, and that means you don't get a new trial. We have to review the record, and that's very time consuming, right? And so I think that's why it is so important that people understand the system, understand how it works, and literally the judges at every level do their best to get the right outcome. But county court, we do oversee, county court and circuit court, we do share jurisdiction on the civil case. A lot of that is car wrecks, things of that nature. But I'm gonna be honest, a lot of times people just need a good trial date, because once they get a trial date, it gives them the motivation to resolve it.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. Everything can't go to trial. I mean, we don't have enough days in the year to try everything. So a lot of things, are going to have to get resolved by agreement one way or the other, because you can't just try every single case.
And that's why one of the things that I did at the circuit level is we did a schedule where we require mediation. We found some very experienced mediators here that know Hinds County, that have extensive practice, and we say, hey, we want you all to be mediators. You all mediate as many cases as possible, and what's not resolved in mediation, we will immediately set for trial.
One thing I'm learning in this role as a judge, we have to kind of push things along to a certain extent if we can. I just got back from the National Judicial College in Reno, and I'm sure you'll be going soon. Um, and I talked to one of the judges in Alabama, and he said when he's dealing with discovery disputes, motions to compel, he tells the attorneys, look, have you all talked about this face to face? If not, go outside and talk. See if y'all can narrow this down. Then y'all come talk to me. Because a lot of times they get in front of you, and when y'all all together, this is the first time they actually talk to each other. I'm not talking about sending emails back and forth. Actually sit down and talk. And when I start doing that, letting them talk, a lot of times they'll have a resolve to come back, Judge, we got an agreement. And you don't have to go through all of that.
And people don't realize the more you're right, and when you get them to resolve it, that frees up your time to focus on other cases, right?
Right.
And that's our job as judges, is to try to be as efficient with our time as possible, so we can address as many needs in the community as possible. And so, it's really important. I mean, that's a great idea, and it's sad. A lot of times, you're right. People file motions and they come to hearing and they're ready to go to war, and nobody's had a face-to-face conversation.
Right. Right. Yeah. So you might you if you ain't already doing it, you may just try it out and see how you like it. All right. So talk to us a little bit about. Let's close out with circuit court. Talk to us about the circuit court jurisdiction and specifically some things you're doing in your courtroom.
So circuit court has concurrent jurisdiction with county court, anything up to $200,000. But anything above $200,000, circuit court has exclusive jurisdiction on civil cases. Also on felonies, it has exclusive jurisdiction on all of your felonies. And so, I mean, it's no secret that the big concern here in Hinds County is obviously trying to move cases, especially on the criminal side. And so, what we've been doing is we have been setting court dates, setting trial dates. As a matter of fact, I may even have a trial later on this evening. I may have a criminal trial this week. And so we're trying to give people an opportunity, if they want to go to trial. And then, like you say, you can't try every case. And so trying to work out as many cases as possible. Now, one thing that I'm doing is I am highly reviewing plea deals. And I'm telling I'm telling parties that this court is going to look especially close at plea deals, especially if it involves a violent offense or if a person has extensive criminal history. I believe people in this county are just as good as people in every other county. I believe people in Hinds County are entitled to the same level of protection as people in other counties. If you will not be allowed to constantly terrorize people in other counties, you should not be allowed to constantly terrorize people in Hinds County. I believe in second offenses. I believe in giving people another chance. I also believe that if you are not going to utilize another opportunity, if you're going to go back in the community and terrorize the community, we're not going to send you back in the community, right? Some people need a timeout to reflect and to get their lives together. And look, I'm very transparent with people. I understand the toll that incarceration takes. I've had, I had a father who was sentenced to jail time in this very courthouse. And so I understand when you sentence a person to jail, you're not just sentencing that person. If they're married, you're sentencing their spouse. If they have children, you're sentencing their children. If they have an aging parent, you're sentencing their parent. You're literally sentencing their entire community. And so I think we have to be intelligent. I don't think just because a person makes a mistake one time, especially if they're not a threat to public safety, I don't think you necessarily send them to jail. I have been approving PTI offers and drug court because I want people to get help. However, there are some people, I'm looking at their record, and then I look at the offense. Now, I don't believe you get a second chance to kill somebody. I don't believe you get a second chance to rape, rob somebody. And so those offenses that are violent offenses, and I think they pretty much know, and I basically said this last week in court. I said, my policy, if it involves a gun and a public safety threat, I'm likely not going to sign a plea offer if it does not involve some period of jail time. We're going to have an awakening moment in this community, right? You can't stick a gun in somebody's face, terrorize them, take their car, and then come back and say, my bad, I just wanted to joyride. that person, they're gonna have emotional and mental trauma. Everybody in that neighborhood is gonna lose peace because they're thinking, "Am I gonna be robbed when I walk out to my car?" And so I think people have to know that if you commit certain crimes, there are gonna be serious consequences. And so, I don't enjoy. In my role as circuit judge, there are already people that I have sent to prison. I don't enjoy that at all. But if I have to send a person to prison so that other people in our neighborhood can live safe, then I'll do that. I think one of the saddest things is you drive around some of our neighborhoods and people who have lived in the community, they're almost prisoners in their homes. Burglar bars on every door. They're afraid to sit on the porch because people may just be shooting. We got to change that. We have to change that. Grandma and granddad, they deserve to be at peace. They deserve to be able to sit on their porch. They work. They deserve to be able to sit on their porch without hearing gunshots, without worrying that somebody's going to walk up and try to rob me. Children in our community, they deserve, just like children in every other community, they deserve to be able to play on the street and not have to worry about gunfire. And let's be honest, guns change the nature of things. There are certain environments where people will walk away from conflict, but if they have a gun, they feel like, oh, I'm Big Bad Johnny. You're not gonna talk to me in any kind of way. You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna disrespect me. And so then people pull out guns and bullets. They don't have names on it. Right? There have been too many innocent children, too many innocent people that have died. And what's so sad is you see young men in our community, and they're good, intelligent young men, but they make these choices and they don't think. And and we have to instill in our young men, you can do something in 5 minutes that you're gonna have to pay 50 years for. And so circuit court has to address felonies, but I'm really hoping that we're starting to send a serious message. And I'm telling people, talk to the young men, talk to people in the community, say, hey, look, that street life comes at a cost, right? And if you end up in front of a judge, people in this community are tired of senseless, unnecessary crimes, especially gun crimes. And this is the problem. I don't think that they realize. If you take a case to jury, your jury is not going to be people who walk up and down the street all day. They're not going to be people who sit up under a tree and smoke. They're going to be people from the community who get up and go to work every day, and they're thinking, I'm tired of cutting on the 6 o'clock news and seeing senseless murder. I'm tired of hearing gunshots. And they're going to be from the community, and they're going to have no problem saying, convict this person. And especially in my courtroom, if a jury convicts you, I have told everybody, look, if y'all can work it out, y'all probably want to work it out. Because if you go to trial and they meet their burden, the sentence is going to reflect the seriousness of the crime, right? And I think it has to. And so circuit court has a very important function when it comes to keeping the public safe. And by the grace of God, I'm going to do all I can to keep residents in Hinds County safe, even if that means taking little Johnny out of Hinds County and sending him to the Mississippi Department of Corrections.
And I hope we can see a shift with our young people. When I look at the news and I see some, teenager getting charged with all these heinous crimes, I just think back when I was 15 and 16. I mean, the main thing I cared about was I want to get a driver's license. I want to have a car. Like that's all that my whole world revolved around. I couldn't imagine, running around with guns and talking about shooting and killing people and all this kind of stuff. But I'm convinced that some of this music has something to do with it. Have you heard of drill music?
Yes.
So, and I listened to some of that stuff one time, and I was like, wow, it's just they just listening to killing, shooting. That's all they're talking about. I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna kill your brother, and I'm gonna kill your family. It's just, I think the music got something to do with it. But I hope we can have some kind of shift, some kind of cultural shift. We definitely got to see that.
We have to teach young people to be better. Like they're going to be if you pull out a gun and shoot somebody, there are going to be consequences. And so I can just shoot somebody. I can stack up bodies, and I'm just going to get away with it. No, you're going to get caught. And then I appreciate my mother took us to church and stuff like that. I'm just, my face is, look, if I never get caught, I got to stand before God. So I just, we have to do a better job in I'm teaching these young men to think, how is this going to affect my life? What are going to be the consequences? right? And then I have daughters. I'm very concerned about who my daughters are gonna marry. If all of our young men, I mean, we both went to Tougaloo, and it's too, we're sending too many young men from our communities to correctional facilities, not colleges. And who our daughters gonna marry if all of our young men locked up? So we got to do, we have to do a better job on the front end about teaching these young people to make good choices, teaching them to value their lives and to value other people's lives, teaching them, look, you don't go in somebody's house without authority. There was one young man that I represented, and literally, I started representing him when I was in law school, right? And I
Okay.
represented him for in youth court, and I followed him. And he was always in trouble. And I asked him, I said, why do you keep breaking into people's houses? He said, oh, well, they got insurance. That's what insurance is for. And I said, look, there's no insurance on your life. You gonna go into the wrong house one day, and somebody is going to be in there and they're going to protect themselves and their family, and you may lose your life over a TV that you're going to sell for $50. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And I tell people, look, you may not make, see, I worked in fast food, Taco Bell, throughout high school and college. I tell you, you may not get rich working in fast food, but peace has a price. Liberty has a price, right? You don't have to worry about law enforcement kicking in your door. You don't have to worry about being hauled off to jail. You don't have to worry about, ending up in the Department of Corrections. And look, there was a young man uh, that I saw recently that was sentenced, and his mother had to pay the restitution. I think it's so unfair. You're not only victimizing the community, you're victimizing your family. Your mothers are having to come up with money for attorneys and all kind of stuff. We have to do a better job reaching our young men. And again, Judge King, that's why I'm so glad that you and I are on the bench, because not only can we be judges in the courtroom, but we can go out and be liaisons in the community. We can be advocates. We can talk to you. I know both of us are really active in the community, and I would much rather talk to a young person in a classroom in the community than having them stand in front of us in a courtroom.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we are approaching the hour mark. Judge Stevenson, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this good information. Anything you want to say in closing?
No, just as we go out, I'm encouraging people to do their part to make the system better. We need people to show up for jury duty. Everybody wants out of jury duty. No, you're not. They're not gonna pay you a whole.
All right, Judge. Well, thanks again. Thanks for coming on the show. And to all the viewers, thank you for viewing, and you all have a great week.